Fox News alert millions of American families.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm George Thomas. We begin with the latest.
Here in St. John's Hospital, there are certainly a lot of cameras here at the LAPD and all across the
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm George Thomas. We begin with the latest in the coronavirus pandemic. Number of cases here in the U.S.
Welcome to Rise to Liberty podcast. Before we get going, I'd like to ask all of you to go to risetoliberty.com/links, where you can find everything related to the show, including leaving voice messages. Leave a voice message to have it played on the show. You can also head over to risetoliberty.store for all the kick-ass merch we have. Finally, don't forget to go to tomfor52.com. Thomas Queter is running for New York Senator and could use your help. So head on over to tomfor52.com and leave a donation. greasyporcupines.org for all your auto repair needs in Arizona. Open Monday through Saturday, 24 hours a day. Just call 602-845-0105. Now, we have a very special guest on the show today. He came onto the scene due to being let go from a unnamed airline, and we'll just go with that. And really took, I guess, the culture by storm. Really threw a wrench into the gears of the official narrative from the left. And I would like to welcome my new friend, Ryan, also known as Lady MAGA. How are you doing, Ryan?
Hey, what's up, Jacob? I'm glad to be here. Thank you for that intro. I've never put it like that. Threw a wrench into the gears, and that is exactly what I did. Coming out of the closet as a gay Trump supporter about 2.5 years ago, I just couldn't handle the the LGBTQIA plus movement anymore because it's not based on equality. It's not based on tolerance. It's based on pushing communism, socialism, groupthink, and quite frankly, predatory things like pushing hormones and injections on children. So I couldn't take it anymore, and I did support President Trump. So I came out, and then just after about 2 years, I was fired from my job in the airline industry because the woke corporations today, they don't allow you to have your free speech. They don't, if you don't adhere to the Black Lives Matter narratives and the LGBTQIA plus mainstream narratives, then you are considered an extremist. So all these moms everywhere on Twitter, they're putting their profile with AKA domestic terrorist. So I was basically labeled as someone who's dangerous and bigoted and all of that. But I am gay and I am a drag artist. I prefer the term drag artist just because drag queens are doing such repulsive things in public libraries these days, and I don't want to be associated with that because I don't have an agenda of recruiting other people to do what I do, or brainwashing children when it comes to gender and all of that. So anyway, yeah, I'm so glad to be here. It's really an honor to be invited on your show, and I'm so grateful that you're doing this show, and I'm just really happy to be here.
Well, yeah, I'm glad we got you on. I started this show just because I've seen what's been going on in our culture, and I mean the marketplace is flooded with podcasts. I like to call this show the best podcast you've never heard of. You know, but whether 10 people hear this or 1,000 people hear this, 100,000, it doesn't matter to me because I'm still being able to exercise my freedom of speech. Might get taken off of some platform, but guess what? I have backups and I'll put it everywhere and anywhere I can put it because it is so vital for everybody to be able to express their freedom of speech, especially now. It's our first line of defense. So it was really important for me to get you on, um, because you really show, well, for one, that all Trump supporters are not racist, homophobic, bigoted, backwards, hillbillies, and that's the official narrative. So it's, yeah, like I said, it was just really important for me to get you on to be able to showcase that.
Well,
Um,
I truly appreciate that because on the side of free speech and the conservative side, unfortunately, I do get some backlash from people who tell me, you're not allowed to be a conservative, you're not part of this movement, you dress up as a woman, that means you're not a true patriot, you're not a true conservative. And to me, and I'm sure for you as a libertarian, it all comes down to the individual. It comes down to our freedom to be who we are as long as we're not pushing it forcibly on anybody else or hurting anybody else. And quite frankly, dressing up and having a good time in a wig is harmless. It is not
yeah,
something that has anything to do with my personal morality. So the fact that you considered me someone to be on your podcast really is an honor because I get backlash from both sides. And the backlash from the left doesn't bother me so much because they're purple haired wackos celebrating obesity. But it does hurt my feelings when people on the right don't give me a chance. But I forgive them because the reason they're afraid is not because of me, it's because of the LGBTQIA in your face, transgender
yeah,
children, men in bathrooms, drag queen story hour. They're just pushing this crazy, crazy narrative, and people think that I'm trying to infiltrate the right side with that sort of thing, and I'm just not. At the end of the day, I'm based. I'm a
yeah,
I'm a red-blooded all-American patriot, and quite frankly, I am an alpha male at heart. I
yeah,
may be a little effeminate. I might have a little bow on my hat, but I would die for my country. I would defend my fellow citizens, and I would not consider myself uh effeminate, or I mean, I am effeminate, but I would consider myself a true red-blooded patriot. I'm not here to uh take away the idea of masculinity from other people or any of that. And at the end of the day, like when I'm not doing drag, I get to grow my beard and just feel my lumberjack true
yep.
spirit. And then tomorrow I got to shave it all off and raise my voice a little bit and be Lady MAGA.
Oh, that's great though. Honestly, like I can see why there might be some backlash from the right. Um, Automatically thinking that that's what you're doing, though, I think is a bit outlandish. Like, really, can't you just like step back a little bit and realize that everyone isn't going to be exactly you? Besides, you don't want people to be exactly you.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
a lot of them do. A lot of them do. They
yeah,
want you to be pious, church-going, cookie cutter, conservatives in a stuffed suit, and that it's their way or the highway. And so
yeah,
people who break that norm, they find it threatening, but that's why we lose on the right. That's why, because they're
yep,
known for being closed-minded. They're known for, our way or the highway. And quite frankly, as much as I support religious freedom to the death. Like the Mormon church here in Utah, they can believe that homosexuality is a sin. They can kick you out of BYU if you're doing homosexual things because they have their honor code and the things that you have to sign. But I do take issue when people try to legislate their religious beliefs into law.
yeah.
That's where it gets a little tricky because if you believe in true freedom, you believe in supporting people and their speech, even if you disagree with it.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I have an issue with legislating morality. It's not the place of the government. Um, that's more of a philosophical position. That's the philosophers of society. It's for them to work out. It's for every individual person to work out. It's not up to the government to say you can do this, you can't do that. just based upon whatever moral code that you stick to, that you were raised with, or regardless. And it's okay if you don't like somebody else's choices, but to stop them from doing something just because you disagree with it is like it's just such a blatant violation, in my opinion, of just being able to live as a person.
I
Stopping
agree.
anyone.
I think the only real things that need to be law are consent. People who are incapable of giving consent to something, such as children, or with hormone injections for transgender surgeries, or sexual activity. There has to be laws that protect those who cannot protect themselves. But other than that, if you're an adult and you want to do whatever you want to do, um, that's the foundation of America, you know.
Yeah,
But
I
I do think
100%
I
agree.
do think we have to have laws, basically the Ten Commandments. Don't kill,
Yeah.
don't steal, uh, you know, don't put pornographic material blasting from your roof. Although you're libertarian, you might defend somebody for doing that.
I'm definitely more right leaning libertarian. Um, I get into a lot of discussions because under the libertarian banner there are so many different points of views. Left leaning. The only ones I don't take seriously are the anarcho communist or anarcho socialist. I'm like, you're not libertarian. You're not anarchist. Stop. You're embarrassing yourself.
There's
Other than
really
that,
like socialist, communist people trying to infiltrate the libertarian movement.
hmm yeah.
That,
So you're arguing for less government and more government at the same time. It's the most absurd thing, and they'll tell you, I'm a anarcho whatever, anarcho communist. So I don't believe in a state, but I believe in communism. And it's like, okay, well, how do you plan on getting your perfect commune without the force of the state? It's impossible.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's the whole premise of the left. We want freedom, we want equality, we want all this stuff, we want tolerance and love and everything, but obey the fascist government. Submit,
Yeah.
submit, submit. Let the government control everything. They claim to be the people who believe in liberty and freedom, while they are literally ushering in the very system, like in all the LGBTQIA plus people. So there's a guy named Eric Boutsos here in Utah. He does a lot of rallies. He's pro freedom, pro everything, and he had an event. And he's known as being a homophobe and a bigot, even though he's one of my best friends. And the LGBTQIA plus Gestapo took chalk and they wrote all this stuff all over the sidewalk in front of his event. And literally, one of the things that they wrote was communism is inevitable.
Wow.
They wrote that. So
Ooh.
that's what's infiltrated the LGBT community, which is no longer the LGBT community. It's LGBTQIA plus, non-binary, genderqueer, queer stuff that means nothing. It's just straight people who want attention. And so they're
Yeah.
expanding the alphabet to convince more and more people to present themselves as victims. And thus they gain more money and power by presenting themselves as the saviors of these alleged victims. And it's a multi-million billion-dollar industry to promote that LGBTQIA plus alphabet narrative of victimization, because organizations like GLAD and the Human Rights Campaign and Pride Centers and the Democrat Party can raise money by touting the fear-based victim narrative that we have to help these poor people. And according to them, I should be victim number one. I mean, I was raised Mormon, I went to
Yep.
conversion therapy, I'm a drag artist, I'm gay. Although now, to be honest, I'm not allowed to be a victim because I'm cisgender, which of course means I identify with my biological body, and I'm white. So even within the LGBTQIA plus movement, people are stepping down at pride centers all across the country because the white supremacy of the gay movement has to come to an end because it's been primarily cisgender white men who have
Oh
done
my
it
god.
all. And I feel like, yeah, that's essentially true. And you're welcome.
Yeah. That's
You know?
it's crazy that the oppression Olympics. It's
That's exactly what it is, the oppression Olympics. Yeah, and I just
who
refuse
can
to
be
view
more
myself
oppressed?
as a victim, right, and I really could claim that card. I was raised Mormon, I was raised by an anti-gay activist, my dad. I definitely went through a lot of trauma and difficult times, but there comes a point when you are an adult and you decide, "Am I going to let this traumatize me? Am I going to view myself as a victim, or am I gonna look back and focus on the good things? I'm an Eagle Scout. I had amazing friends in high school. I wasn't doing drugs. I wasn't smoking. I didn't have sex. I was living a very clean, good life, went on my Mormon mission. And as much as that was difficult, I'm grateful because I speak French and I learned a lot. So I like the Elizabeth Smart approach to trauma. She basically goes around and just does a speech saying, I'm not going to give them one more minute of my mental energy, and I'm going to move on and empower myself. And has there been problems with gay people in the past? Yes. Was it difficult 80s, 90s, even 2000s? Yes. But we're at a point now where if you come out as a rainbow person, it's the biggest party of the year. And coming out as a Trump supporter or coming out as someone who believes in medical freedom is 100,000 times more difficult than coming out as a rainbow person. And I know that because when I came out of the closet as a gay Mormon, it was rough. It was tough, lots of adjustments. But my family, they weren't monsters. They were just heartbroken. And I went through that. But coming out as a gay, Trump supporting drag artist just over 2.5 years ago was um, it was like coming out as a gay Mormon was like a little birthday party, a cupcake, a little kumbaya fest compared to coming out as a gay conservative drag artist, which was like a nuclear war of destruction that ended with me being fired from my job in the airline industry after an impeccable 8-year career. So it's a lie. Coming out as a rainbow, the persecution of rainbow people is not a reality. It's a myth. Do families struggle? Are there evangelical communities that are not accepting? Yes, but overall, it's a farcical idea to present yourself as a rainbow victim in 2021.
Yeah, I agree. I think there one word, I'm actually really obsessed with language because that seems to be how the left, this new extreme left, is really changing culture is through controlling the language. And so one word that I think that they hate the most, and this is why you never hear them use it, is disproportional. Everything is disproportional. They can claim that there are victims, the alphabet people, as Dave Chappelle likes to call them. There are victims, like you just said as well, within certain families, certain upbringings. Of course, there are. Um, I've never denied that. You just admitted that. I don't think anyone's fighting that.
Well, I was
Um,
one of them. Honestly, I was one of them.
yeah,
I was raised to believe terrible things about gay people. I was, told not to be effeminate. I was punished for playing with Barbies. So that definitely exists, and it's definitely difficult. But it wasn't child abuse, as they're
yeah,
saying. It was strict parents. I was raised in a strict, evangelical household. I was raised by Catholics. My mama wouldn't let me my mama would smack me upside the head. I mean, all of us have sad stories from our childhood, but yeah, it's disproportional. Expand on that because I'm going to use that word because you sound really smart, and I basically don't even really know what that means. So let's go. I mean, I am just a dumb blonde drag queen, right?
yeah. Oh, come on. But disproportional. So it's, of course, these I'm trying to find the right word. These tragedies, the way that kids are brought up across all identities, all everything, is it's tragic. But there is a disproportionate amount of non-victims, like you said. In 2021, you have less LGBTQAIP victims.
XYZ, elemental
Yeah,
P, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
exactly. You have less victims today than you have almost ever had ever. And so there is a disproportionate amount that's talked about. They still talk about trans people being killed just left and right, like it's a massacre, it's a genocide, and it's like,
Primarily beaten up by black men.
yeah,
They never want to talk about that. Disproportionate. Have there been white people who hurt a trans person? I'm sure there have been,
yeah,
but
yeah, I'm
almost
sure,
like I believe it's 90% of alleged trans women of color who are under attack were attacked by a black person in inner cities. And what were they doing when they were attacked? Drugs
yeah,
or prostitution. They were out in the middle of a ghetto, looking for crack, and they got beat up by a black person. And that the narrative is that a person in this hat, a white supremacist Christian male gun owner, is the one who did that. They hide the realities behind all of it.
yeah.
So disproportional means they're using anecdotal and statistics that don't reflect the fear that they're pushing. Is that kind of what it means?
Basically, so a perfect example is the crime rates amongst races. You don't have to go too far if you look at official crime statistic data from the FBI, the Department of Justice, things like this. You don't have to go too far to know that in general, the black community is creating or is committing, sorry, a disproportionate amount of crime to the percentage of citizenry. So they're 13, 14% of the population, but young black males, which is an even smaller portion of the community, it's like 9%, 8%, is committing, 50, 60% of the violent crime. That's a disproportionate amount. And until we can talk about these facts, that that great word disproportionate, until we can talk about the disproportionate numbers, we can't ever solve anything. And the left does not like that word, in my opinion, which is why you never hear them say it.
Well, and that's why
And
they are the true racists, because in talking about that, you're bringing to light the suffering and the misery and the deaths of those young, vulnerable people who are caught up in that life of crime and they're dying. We know that in Chicago, more children have been shot with bullets than have died of COVID nationally. And so, if you really cared about Black lives and Black children, this is the only thing you would be talking about. You would
yeah,
start with the number one way that Black people are dying and suffering and try to fix those problems and reach those communities. But they don't, because the left does not care about Black lives. They care about power and they care about manipulation and they care about votes and demographics that will push their agenda that brings them more power. They don't care about those black people. And frankly, conservatives do. Frankly, Donald Trump did. Frankly, I do. It breaks my heart. It's never on CNN, it's never on the news. But when you see those stories of those precious little black children who got caught in crossfire or were shot, which is a regular occurrence across the country,
yeah,
it breaks your heart. That does not make the news, but Jussie Smollett and his fake hate crime makes the news. Fake hate crimes make the news across the country. And of course, moment of silence, George Floyd, you know,
Saint Floyd.
Saint Floyd. One day he will stand in heaven on the right side of Fauci.
Oh man.
That's why I'm
Oh
not
man.
Mormon
I'm waiting
anymore.
for
I
that
have a new
answer.
prophet. My prophet is Fauci, and my saint, my new rosary is to George Floyd. Because when he held that gun to a pregnant woman's stomach, I know he only did it to draw attention to the pro life movement, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
probably.
Exactly.
Because he's a saint, such a good guy, such I'm just so glad there's statues. Hey, you're in Utah. Should we get together and replace the Brigham Young statue in downtown Salt Lake with George Floyd? Because I guarantee the
Of
people
course.
of Salt Lake City would vote for that. Aaron Mendenhall would 100% get behind that. There would be
Oh, and
rallies for that.
I'm sure our governor, Governor Cox, would definitely get behind that as well. He would definitely throw his support behind it.
Oh,
So,
absolutely, because he's a lesbian British woman. So of course he would. He would be all about that. He would just embrace the diversity, and then the Utah Jazz would be so proud of him, and he would get his
yes,
kickbacks from the lobbyists and the Utah Jazz and Equality Utah, and he could just celebrate, so much diversity. But I personally think that heteronormative statues are harmful. So if we do put up a George Floyd statue, I feel like he should definitely be naked with a vagina, because that way we're truly embracing the black trans community of color and not just pushing forward his male privilege. Yeah,
wow,
so are
yeah,
you on board?
I
Let's do it. I mean, yeah.
I agree. I mean, how could nobody just like look at or hear this and then not get behind it? Like,
Y- Yeah, I'm not joking. I joke with this, but they would
oh
be
yeah, no,
behind that.
they would.
If the right
Well,
people
and if
pushed it, they would say, "This is a tribute to trans people of color and George Floyd and the legacy." Like, they literally would do it, and they would make him a person with a vagina, because you can't say a woman, but yeah, no, I it's so funny
birthing
because do
person.
do you follow the Babylon Bee? Is that what it's
Oh yeah,
called?
yeah,
Yeah,
the Babylon Bee.
they put
Love
out
those
they
guys.
they put out jokes and stuff from a few years back, and it's literally happening.
Yeah,
So let's just see if in Utah they try to remove, because downtown Salt Lake there is a big Brigham Young statue, I think, by the temple and stuff. I guarantee
yep.
at one point the LGBTQIA plus community is going to do that, and my guess is it's going to be the Brigham Young University LGBTQIA cult, because they are trying to dismantle BYU's standards and policies. Do I agree with all their standards and policies? No, but they're a private university funded by tithing,
Excellent.
and they have the right to, if it's a vegetarian school and you eat meat, you're kicked out. Sorry, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's true.
So I better go get a selfie with Brigham Young while I still can.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea because give it a couple of years. You know, Utah's always behind everyone in a couple of years. You know, anywhere from like 2 to 5 years, and yeah, considering how many statues are popping up for that wonderful Saint Floyd. You know, which
Yeah.
I have an interesting take on this whole thing. Is I've actually only been able to talk to a couple of people about it. Just you know the ferociousness of the attacks that you get when you bring up anything that's not supportive 100% of the narrative. And yeah, should Derek Chauvin kneeled on him that long? Probably not. I'm not a cop. Um, I don't know. It looks really bad, you know.
Oh, it
Uh,
looks really bad, but he was resisting arrest. That's You don't
yeah.
do it,
Well,
especially if
and
you're guilty of a crime. Don't resist arrest. It's that
true.
simple.
Even though I don't really like counterfeit crimes, you know, I don't believe in the fiat dollar. It was still something, and he was a career criminal, and you can only push your luck so long. You know these people are dangerous, or can be dangerous. And that goes for criminals, police officers. Like,
I have to interject that I might be a hypocrite, because when the Gestapo police come for me for choosing medical freedom, I would resist arrest. But the only difference
yeah,
there is I haven't committed a crime. So I guess, I don't know. I think it's terrible what happened. I think he's a victim of the Democrat system. I think he's a victim of so-called black culture, where the very music from Jay-Z and all of the artists, Tyga and all these people, literally um, tells you that murder and being a thug and getting hoes and bitches and all of that stuff, that literally is the culture that was pushed on him. Um, so how do you expect him to break free of that? I do have compassion for black Americans who end up in a life of crime, but it's not because of white supremacists. It's not because of
Yeah.
Christians. It's because the Democrats love that culture. That's why they push it. That's why Barack Hussein Obama invited Jay Z to the White House. If you look up of any lyrics by Jay Z, it is, they got Trump in trouble for saying grab him by the P word. But any lyrics from Jay Z are beyond offensive, beyond
Oh yeah.
misogynistic,
I mean,
beyond
he started his
promoting
career as a crack dealer. You know,
literally. And so, they
which,
love
hey,
that
whatever,
culture.
grind, but
Yep.
uh,
The white the
promoting it as something to look up to, I think, is something different. And as far as Saint Floyd goes, if you can scream, "I can't breathe," you can breathe.
Oh, I never even thought of that. That's one of the things that got me in trouble before I was fired from my career. I took a picture with a sign as Lady MAGA, and it said, "I thought I can't breathe was a bad thing," at a freedom rally against the
Oh
masks.
man,
So I thought it was pretty poignant because I can't breathe with the mask on. It gives me anxiety. It
yeah.
makes me lightheaded. And oh my gosh, when I have to muzzle myself as a red-blooded, freedom-loving American who appreciates breathing, it makes me so mad. So that was my sign. I thought I can't breathe was a bad thing, but apparently that's dangerous and that's racist. And you know,
Yeah,
I
well, I mean,
people.
if you make any point, whether it be even if it's a joke, I mean, just look at Dave Chappelle's new special, which seems to be all over the news. Regardless of whatever point you're trying to make, no matter how true it is or anything, if it goes against the narrative, if it goes against the establishment, it's not okay.
Right.
Um,
He's not, Chris Brown beat Rihanna to a bloody pulp. We've all seen the pictures of that
yeah.
woman. Bloody pulp pictures, abusive, terrible. And he is celebrated. He's one of the biggest stars in hip hop
Mm,
today, to this day. But Dave Chappelle made a joke about trans people and he's canceled. By the way, if you watch the whole special, which I have not because it's not my brand of, I'm still very Mormon, but he in his special at the end, he actually does talk about a trans person that he knew,
yep.
and he's doing fundraising for that person and their family. He's not transphobic, but I watched a clip. There was a black lady critiquing what he said, and she said, if he had made jokes about black women who are heavy or whatever, fat jokes, I would have been offended. And I thought, if you can't make fat jokes, what jokes can you make anymore? I mean,
Hmm.
everybody is fair game. Everyone from actually, everyone except Muslims and
Yeah.
LGBTQIA plus, and now fat people. We should be able to make fun of everyone and everything in this world, including myself.
Well, my opinion is that first of all, gay people, trans people, black people, brown people, everybody, nobody is a porcelain doll. I mean, maybe children, okay, but
Yes, yes.
maybe children, but
Mentally disabled people.
yes,
I would say you don't touch people with Down syndrome. You
yeah,
don't touch children. You don't touch those who are vulnerable, incapable of giving consent, and especially incapable of defending themselves from offensive jokes. Because, a fat joke could definitely be offensive. It could be rude. It could be
yeah.
insensitive. It could be cruel. But that person is an adult and they have the ability to call it out and say that's wrong because free speech is not always good speech. And the beauty of an ideal free marketplace of ideas is when bad speech comes out, like the Westboro Baptist Church that I debated with their website that said, God hates FAGS. That's really bad speech. And the beauty is, I can call it out and say, you should not say that. And we're going to socially put a little pressure on you to stop saying it, but we're not going to try to legislate your very ability to have that offensive website. You know what I'm
Well, I
saying?
mean, if somebody uses that word, call them an asshole.
That's
They're an
exactly right.
asshole.
Yep,
Like
sticks and stones, baby. And I'm glad when people
exactly.
put out terrible speech because
What
they
happened to
expose
that?
themselves.
The sticks and stones. Um, it, it's really interesting. Like I said, I don't think a lot of these people they're not porcelain. Um, they can handle bad words. Should they be forced to? No, nobody should be forced to deal with anything. But that also means you can change the channel. You can turn off the radio. You can You can debate people with terrible ideas. In the marketplace of ideas, good ideas don't need force. Good ideas kill bad ideas. And
Absolutely.
so if it's really that important to kill off a certain idea, show people why it's a terrible idea. Don't just try to silence people because you don't like it. And yeah, okay, you don't like it. I get that. Don't be around it. Like, there's plenty of other places to go. That's the beautiful part of this country. Um,
Amen. Amen. Yep.
like
It
I I
the
can't
only way to
stand
combat
racists, you know?
the what's that?
I can't stand racists. They're not a fun people to be around, you know? It's not like I
It's
wanna
funny
go
how
hang out with somebody, but I would never think in a million years to be able to be like, "That person can't say whatever they want."
right.
I
It's
just
funny how when you say I can't stand to be around racists, that the first image that comes to mind is white racists. When in
Yeah,
reality, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, and the rest of that community, they are the true racists at
yeah,
this point in time. You know, white people, and
blatantly.
actually, they want to create racial division to create more racism because the more race fighting there is, the easier we are all to control. So that is their agenda. And I would agree that they are creating more so-called racism by pushing it in our face over and over and over. And even smaller things like in advertisements, black people represent 13% of the population, but they are in almost 100% of advertising now. And
Yeah.
so that it makes white people say, "Hey, wait a minute. Can't we have an advertisement with somebody who looks like me?" You know? And that
Swung
creates
completely back the opposite direction.
and it creates resentment, which they're going to call racism, but it really isn't. It's like,
Yeah,
when they push all, like, I don't know, making Ariel black in the Little Mermaid that's coming out. I think if they made a new Disney movie with a black mermaid, awesome, let's go watch it. Because apparently the movie takes place in the Caribbean now, and she's a black mermaid. It's kind of cool, but don't erase something white in order to put something black forward. Create new amazing content with more black characters, which I support. I think that's awesome. But
yeah, of
what
course,
that's
create
what
something
creates.
original.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in the story of The Little Mermaid, it's Danish, so it's a very white country. Sorry.
Exactly. And Ariel is white. I think the idea of taking the fairy tale and putting it in the Caribbean, if they had done this with the intention of creating a new spin on the story and doing something really cool, I'd be able to embrace it. But that's not why they did it. They do it as an anti-white statement to say that we have too much white culture, we have too much European culture, and we have to erase that. Too much white culture in a country that's majority white is not racism. It's just the way the cookie crumbles, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Well, and I can even get behind the idea that, historically speaking, there was probably a way to redline black artists, black actors and actresses and everything. Um, but this is also 2021. This isn't 1960. So
well,
I
according
don't
to the left,
understand.
we still live in the 1800s. We still
Yeah,
have
in the
slavery, according to the
1860s.
left. Yeah, that literally is the way they present it, as if modern people in 2021 with free housing and EBT cards and a free cell phone and free Wi-Fi and affirmative action and the ability to cry racism at any time and get someone fired, that is not slavery. That is not the 1960s. They just refused to jump into 2021, just like the LGBTQIA. I probably wouldn't have been too keen on coming out and supporting a huge Republican movement in the 1980s or 90s. But it's 2021, and people are still living in the past, using former discrimination to justify a victim narrative.
Yeah, and creating discrimination out of thin air, like microaggressions. It's like get no, no, get
By
the
the
hell out.
by the way, Jacob, I just like I don't I don't want to come across as aggressive, but the fact that you didn't ask my pronouns and the fact that you assumed my gender in introducing me, it really just sort of invaded my truth and it sort of invaded my safe space. So I just wanted to let you know that. But at this point, I'm not going to apologize for calling you out because it is time for this movement to advance. Literally, that's how they talk. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
As
It's
a
so cringe.
bigoted racist white person, I should have known better.
I know,
I
you
should
really
have
should have.
known better. It's
It was
uh
literal violence, Jacob. It was literal
yeah,
violence.
words are violence. I
Yes.
I keep forgetting about that. And my words, regardless of what I say, stop people from living and actual cause physical harm. It's really hard to get that through my head, because I refuse to I refuse to believe that. Um, yeah,
Sticks and
I
stones.
I honestly just believe. I mean, maybe this is a little traditional of me, but I believe a lot of this comes from communism, and I believe in the grand picture of everything, the big picture. A lot of this is a communist takeover. I believe the gay community, lesbian community, um,
There's no
the
there's no
alphabet
gay
community.
gay there's no gay and lesbian community anymore. I'm not joking and I'm not exaggerating. The T and the transgender and the non-binary queer alphabet has completely erased the gay and lesbian identity because now in the past homophobia was, oh, you're going to hell. Same-sex men kissing men is a sin. Now homophobia is you are gay and you have a genital preference, which means you are not attracted to a trans man with a vagina and your genital preference is transphobic. So the homophobia now is coming from that movement. So you don't even there is no gay and lesbian movement anymore. We are being marginalized because the transgender gender blurring, gender queer agenda has pushed it. I'm sorry to have interrupted you, but
Oh no,
you just got to call it the alphabet movement or the rainbow movement because it's no longer a gay.
the
We're
rainbow
we're
cult.
the rainbow cult. We're being kicked out, especially if you're white.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually when I first contacted you, that was one of the things I brought up is that I honestly believe that this movement has been overtaken by Marxist, Leninist people who are abusing and using the community in such a negative way. There's obviously been people that have suffered from transgender dysphoria or whatever the hell it's being called now. I'm not a doctor. Whatever the DSM calls it. Um, but there's been a massive spike out of nowhere just within such a short amount of time. And it makes you wonder, why would that be if there wasn't some sort of driving factor behind that? Um,
It's Marxism and communism. Before we started recording, I told you my friend Eric Mutzos was
yeah.
doing an event, and the LGBT Rainbow Gestapo came and defaced the whole sidewalk area in the front of the building with chalk. At least it was chalk, but they literally wrote, "Communism is inevitable." So you nailed it. They're using the LGBTQIA movement. They're using the Black Lives Matter movement, and at least Black Lives Matter came out and said this is a Marxist movement. So, yeah, the end goal is communism, and quite frankly, we're not in the beginning stages of communism. We are well on our way into that pit right now in the United States of America. Simply by the fact that you and I talking right now, in the back of our mind is, "Oops, are we going to get kicked off for saying that?"
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
You
oh,
know?
yeah.
So we're in it. This is not America anymore. We do not live in a free country. We don't. We simply don't. We live in the corporate states of America because they gain billions and billions of record profits from the lockdowns while the average small American entrepreneur was crushed. So the corporate states of America, Amazon, Bill Gates buying up all the land, Delta Airlines, Disney, all of it, they are pure Marxist communists, and they're running the country. My question for you about that is, isn't isn't this because of capitalism? Isn't this the bad side of capitalism, that these companies have been able to replace our government?
So unregulated um, capitalism, it's free trade. Um, I have apples. You're a carpenter. I need a chair, and you need apples for your food storage. Um, if we can't figure out how many apples a chair costs, then we'll trade something, a store of value, cryptocurrency, gold, gold-backed currency, something, even the terrible fiat dollar. But what is happening now is corporatism. Mussolini, before he got hung uh, after World War II, he said that fascism should be more appropriately called corporatism. And it's the meshing of government and corporation together. So these companies are able to become a monopoly through the help of government, just like Amazon gained billions of dollars because the small American was shut down. So it's
So yeah, they've joined
a
the that makes sense.
yeah.
They're joining with the government, implementing what the government cannot when it comes to our rights and our free speech. So that makes sense. So no, it is
Fascism.
not pure it's not pure capitalism. It's fascism as they join with the government. That makes a lot of sense because of course I'm
Yeah.
pro capitalism, but when I see these companies, it's like, but wait a minute, that's the dream, to create a huge company, but the dream is not to control the American people and replace the government. So I guess that's, you answered my
Well,
question.
and
Yeah.
there's also accountability as well, because if you make a bad product or make a bad business decision, then you fail. That we have this term in America now called "too big to fail." We bailed out the banks in 2009 or late 2008 and everything, and
And the
too big to
airlines.
fail. Yeah, and the airlines several times. So if you make a bad business decision, you have to fail. That's capitalism. When you stop it through government force, government coercion, or government funding, which is funded through stolen money because of taxes, that's not capitalism. So it's
Right.
just
That makes
this.
perfect sense. Yeah. I love talking to you. I'm learning a lot of stuff, like fancy words like disproportional. And the
Yeah.
difference between good capitalism and unregulated capitalism, and capitalism that allows corporations to become the government. That was never the intention. And like you said, I never thought of that. All of these companies still exist because the government bails them out with my money and your money. And they always
They stole
they
from
they
us.
stole. Yes, taxation is theft. What kills me is I had an argument with my nephew, who's very much a conservative, but I was furious that Governor Spencer Cox, the British lesbian, he specifically doesn't he look like a British lesbian?
He does. He
He
does.
really
That's
does.
so funny. I've never
Yeah.
thought of that.
Um, but he specifically asked for refugees from Afghanistan to be sent to Utah. Okay. Number one, it's primarily adult, able bodied men. Number two, there is no vetting going on. Number three, the Taliban obviously would infiltrate the refugee movement by claiming to be a refugee. What smarter thing could they possibly do than infiltrate the refugee crowds? Say, go get to America. Now we have contacts. So Spencer Cox asked for them to be sent here, and my conservative friend was like, "You know what? We do have a responsibility to help people." And I said, "I did not give consent for my money to be spent on Afghanistan refugees. I don't want one dime of my money. I did not give consent to that." And he said, "Yes, you did, through our voting system." And I said, "Oh, hell no. That's not how it works. That's
Yeah,
not how
no.
it works." But it kind of is how it works.
That's the justification that they use for sure. Um, but it was money I earned, money you earned, money that everyone else earns. I don't have the option to opt out of paying that. If I don't pay that, then I get fines levied against me. If I choose
Or
to not
no,
pay
you'll
those
be put in
fines, then
jail.
men with guns come to my house to put me in a cage, a rape cage.
Yeah.
And if I choose to fight them being put into a rape cage, then they can get physical and cause me physical harm. So by not paying the government, they can inflict physical harm upon me, and get away with it. Justification for what? Social contract? I'm sorry, but physical harm is wrong regardless. So
Oh my
it,
gosh, I've never heard it called a rape cage, but that really is what it is. Apparently, in our prison system, like the guards are underpaid, like they don't make any money, and so they don't care. And by doing deals with the people in the prison and gaining power, they get sucked into that mentality within the prison, and they don't stop prisoners from being raped. So a rape cage is that really is what it is, and I don't care how bad your crime was. Um, to be civilized people, we do not rape you or allow you to be raped. We incarcerate you and protect society from you. But yeah, that's true. I never really thought about that. It's like if you took away the American flag and the narrative of our free country and our system of justice and just put it in those terms, uh, it's obvious what kind of a state we live in. Wow, that's a
yeah,
powerful story. Okay, I don't want to pay it. Don't pay it. I get fined. Men with guns come to my house. Still don't want to pay it. Go to jail. They allow you to be raped. What is worse than that? Wow. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, we are not free people. We're really not.
yeah.
We're really not. Wow. Even before
Taxation
all
is
this
theft.
craziness,
Right
taxation
there.
is theft. Yes.
Yeah,
Taxation is theft enforced by rape, essentially.
yeah. Essentially, yeah. Um, or death, because it has gone that way before. Now, I had a conversation with Dan Berman, Dan Taxation is Theft Berman. Great interview, but he he's pointed out before in previous discussions with other people, and we kind of touched on it a little bit in our discussion, that most of the people that are in prison for like tax evasion or tax fraud or whatever is because they lied to the government. It wasn't that they stopped paying taxes or anything like that. It was they actively lied about the taxes. So it's a whole different thing. And yeah, that's a whole pathway that we could go down some other time, but find it just really interesting that it's taxes are paid because of the threat of force, and that's wrong.
Absolutely.
That's
And
that's
now
what
they're
I'm
coming
against.
after all of our transactions.
Yeah,
$600 or more. The little kid mowing the lawn makes $800. The government knows it. And I think that's
yeah.
absolutely going to I think it's going to pass. I think we're to that point.
Oh yeah, yeah. Which is why I highly promote bullion. Um, there's these things here in Utah, gold backed currency. They're little bills, and it's basically pieces of plastic with a certain amount of gold laid in between them, and they're pressure sealed. Highly recommend those. I'm trying to get somebody, a representative on this show to come on and talk about them. Great, highly recommend them. Premium's a little high, but cryptocurrency as well. Pretty much anything to get out of the fiat dollar, because it's just not going to end well. You know, and there's other alternatives that are actually worth something, an actual store of value. Um, Plus, it takes the control away from people who have no interest in helping you, only controlling you. Um, it's a way to
I that sounds great. It sounds great, but I do feel like they're going to find a way to prevent that.
there can be. Um, it depends on how hard they want to push. Cryptocurrency. I mean, I'm still green in the community. It's a wild thing. Learn something new every day. That's one thing that they are definitely trying to do, is find a way to regulate. And the Federal Reserve is having a very difficult time because they don't know how.
Right.
They just don't know how. And so what they do to regulate it is to regulate being able to purchase it, switching from fiat to crypto
Right.
or back to fiat.
That
That's what they
that could be one of the reasons they want to invade our privacy and see our little Venmo, our PayPal, all that kind of stuff. That's probably one of the reasons, but they'll never say that. Yeah, taxation
well
is
and
theft.
and this is a basically a corporation at this point that, can spend trillions of dollars, and the taxpayers never get receipts for anything. We never get an itemized list of what it was spent on. We can send, billions of dollars over to Saudi Arabia for gender study courses. What good
Right.
is that going to do over there? It's not. um these people over there, they still throw gays off of buildings,
Oh, they
stone
laugh at us. They
people
laugh at
going to
us.
school.
They're using the Islamic principle of taqiyya. The principle of
Yeah,
taqiyya within Islam is lying to the infidel in order to advance the causes of Allah and the Muslim Brotherhood. So anytime they say, "Oh, we're open to gender studies," or Ilhan Omar says, "We support the LGBTQIA plus community," or "We support abortion," all of that is taqiyya, to fool the infidels into thinking we're making
yeah,
progress. They're our friends. Every time you see an Islamic leader shaking the hand of the Pope, or doing some sort of humanitarian thing, it's just takia. They're patting themselves on the chest, knowing they are advancing the cause
yeah,
by lying to these stupid, naive, bleeding heart Western idiots. And so
yeah.
that's what they're doing, and that's another reason I don't want Afghanistan refugees right here in Utah, because I go to the thrift store in Salt Lake City and everybody's got a freaking burqa on, and I'm like, you're not embracing our way of life. And I know for a fact that if those DI employees took off their burqa, they would be punished within the social order of the Islamic community in Utah. If they took it
Yeah.
off, ran away, and ran to the park in a bikini, they would face backlash that is unbelievable. There's no center for hidden witness protection programs for these women, and if there were, they would flock there. I guarantee it. Guarantee it.
The issue I have with it is because if somebody wants to come over here and live that way, that's fine. But Sharia does not take place over our country's laws. Period. Like it does not replace the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, the Declaration. Like those are our founding documents. Granted, our Big Brother likes to wipe their ass with it all the time, but that still doesn't change the fact that that is the law of the land. So they can come here, but there has to be a certain amount of assimilation.
Oh,
You can't come
absolutely.
here. You can't come here with a completely antithetical um, culture and keep every 100% of those values and live in a free society. It's That's not what's happening, and that's also why the left like to bring in these refugees, as they like to call them, from South America, the Middle East, everywhere, to create a more or a larger voting base for themselves. Because at least the first two or three times they'll vote Democrat until these people start learning more and more about who this party actually is. Um, it's just really interesting. They bring in people who do not value our freedom, um, any one of our freedoms, and then they're
They come from conquered nations. They
yeah,
come from places where within their soul, within their psyche, within their very culture is the idea of being conquered, because they come from an oppressive government. They've never studied, and quite frankly, our young people today are not studying the fundamental elements of our Constitution or the ideas of freedom, especially individualism. So that's why they want them to flood this country. And of course, now they're just coming for a free ride. They know it's a free ride. They get put into cars and bused to red states and given a working voucher, given food, given housing, given everything. So it's about a free ride, and of course, it's also about dismantling our very liberty-minded culture.
Oh yeah.
They don't want people like you and me to exist. They don't want us to have a voice. They want complete global state control. And I'm sorry, the New World Order is not a conspiracy theory. The
No.
globalist elite
Gotta build
are
back better, right?
Build Back Better, The Great Reset,
Yep.
it's all. And in San Francisco, I just read that the legislation in California is making it essentially impossible for people to live in a single family home. And they're attacking suburbia and the idea of people living in their own home and building, communist buildings, those hideous Russian apartment buildings where everybody has to live in a small apartment. And that's part of the Great Reset. And people who come from shithole countries, and I'm sorry, Haiti is a shithole country. I have a
It
friend who
is.
lived there. Women are raped, witchcraft is rampant, children disappear, domestic abuse is through the roof. People live in a way that is uh, indescribable with any other word than shithole. So thank you, Donald Trump. That's actually one of the because I lived overseas for 9 years of my life. I worked in the humanitarian realm. I was in South America, Africa, and when Donald Trump and I knew about Haiti because I worked with a lady in my organization who had worked there as well. And I knew all the stories. And she said everybody would call her racist anytime she would point out what was happening to women, what was happening to children. They would say, "Oh my gosh, you're just trying to impose your white culture on them." And so when Donald Trump called Haiti a shithole, I was like, what? This guy, he literally is telling it like it is. And
Yeah.
I don't like the word. I still don't like profanity, but it made me realize this guy's not holding back from saying what is true. So yeah, but all these people from Haiti coming here, they have no idea what freedom is. They have no idea what women's rights are. They have no idea what children's rights are. They have no idea what prosperity truly means. They don't know what it's like to own a home or have a clean yard. So, of course, and it's a deliberate effort. They're all being shipped by George Soros and um, the clandestine organizations. How are they getting from Haiti to the border of the United States of America? They don't have any money. They're being
Yeah,
shipped in,
and
so
not
it's an
not
invasion.
all of them, not all of them are coming in on rafts like they are from Cuba, you know? Some of them are, but the vast majority, like, these huge caravans, it takes a lot of, energy, it takes a lot of resources to move that amount of people all at one time, and
Absolutely.
somebody is paying for the money, the fuel, the food, the water, like, might not be a lot, but it's just enough to get them to be able to move from one spot to the next.
Yep.
And I mean, the the Bond villain that is Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum, and man, seriously, just put a white cat on his lap and just let him talk, and he is a damn Bond villain. Oh, it's just weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, even he himself said that, in a matter of 10 years, we will not own anything and we'll be happy about it. Well, no, that's not going to happen. Private property rights are one of the fundamentals of freedom. Um, my body is private, you know. That's my property, private property rights. I have rights over my body. Um, I have rights over the property that I have legally procured through legal transactions. You know, and I use a lot of these terms, legal transaction, kind of loosely because anything over $600, I don't think the government should necessarily know about. Um, but I didn't steal it. I didn't steal property. If I acquired that property morally and ethically, um, from a consenting party, then I have rights to that property.
Absolutely, but they want to erase private property. They want to erase the American dream, and they want to erase the rights of the individual. In Disney, I've been obsessed with Disney since I was a kid. I loved it, but I've
Me
just
too.
completely divorced it. It actually breaks my heart because I love Disney, but I had to have a financial divorce from them and never give them another dime of my money when they gave their manifesto to their employees and they said that the idea of individualism is based on white supremacy, even though in great moments with Mr. Lincoln, in Disneyland, they had marble statues that represented the spirit of America, and one of the statues was a cowboy, and it said the spirit of individualism. Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln has been shut down. I don't know if it's going to reopen, but I guarantee the statue that says individualism is going to be gone. And they're probably going to put in some sort of Black Lives Matter type display and try and tie Lincoln to that. So yeah, they want to erase the individual. They want communal property ownership. They want state-owned distribution of everything, so we can all be equally poor. Did you see what they're doing in Paris? Getting rid of
Oh
their
yeah.
streets and putting in some sort of dystopian, utopian parts to prevent people
Mhm.
from driving their own vehicles.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. These are all communist tactics.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
you've got to dehumanize and you've got to disassociate, and that's all I see being pushed. Honestly, you
Yep.
know.
Even by the
Um,
right. I'm sorry, the right isn't
oh
doing
yeah.
anything. They're not doing anything to concretely talk about what's really going on. Everyone's afraid of talking about immigration. Everyone's afraid of talking about incongruent cultures that are being infiltrated into the United States, such as Islam in Minnesota, Michigan, Boston. Mosques are going up everywhere. And we've seen how that ended in Sweden. By the way, did you hear about the bow and arrow guy in Sweden who went around killing people with a bow and arrow? I I dug and dug and dug to find out his name or his ethnicity, and it is not being shared. And in every article, they mention a Danish citizen killed people
Mm,
with the bow and arrow, and then below that, they mention the previous attacks committed by extreme right wing terrorists in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, shootings by right wing white men. And so they're not giving you the name, they're not giving you the ethnicity, and they're tying it to the white supremacy. But I mean, maybe it was just some crazy white person, but the majority,
possible.
of course, but the majority of attacks, like in France on Bastille Day, and the teacher who got her head cut off for sharing a cartoon of Mohammed, that this is the reality. So they're coming into the United States, and they're going to have as many children as possible, and they're going to use tequila to smile at the stupid bleeding heart idiots and say, "Oh, it's all great. Islam is great." And then it will be legal to put the call to prayer on loudspeakers like it is in Cologne, Germany. At 6 a.m. in your community. They even did it in Minneapolis
Yeah.
for their holiday or whatever, Ramadan or something. They allowed it. They allowed their call to prayer to wake up American citizens with the Islamic prayer. So again, they use taqiyya. It's all great, but now that we're so numerous, we're going to be able to vote to force Germany and Western societies to embrace Islam. It's coming. And I'm sorry, now that we've seen that American women are so obsessed with wearing a mask and they're willing to muzzle themselves, if the right leaders and influencers and celebrities came out and said we should all wear a hijab in solidarity with our Muslim brothers and sisters, they would do it. They
Yeah.
would do it.
Yeah.
They would do it
I mean,
tomorrow.
at this point, I can't remember exactly who said this, but it was something I kind of agreed with, that before all of this cooties going around, um, and the dystopian nightmare that's rained down after it, I didn't think that Republicans specifically would give up their guns. At this point, I don't know. I don't know how a large majority of them would actually react to having to turn in their weapons. I mean, I saw
I,
how quickly people folded under the power of the state, and it just brings into question,
That's a really,
it's
really good point, because for freedom minded people like you and me, a mask is a hill to die on. You will not muzzle
yeah,
me. A forced injection is a hill to die on. Um, but they're all just getting it to keep their job. All my conservative family members who had a job that said get the jab, they got the jab. And I would actually cry and say, "Did you get the jab because it was a medical decision for you, or did you get the jab to keep your job?" Without saying anything, they said, "To keep my job." I really just felt like, and so they were willing to do that. So if you're willing to take an
Yep.
injection into your body against your will, I think I don't know, I think the moment of giving any gun owner owns the gun because they want to protect their children in case of an emergency or a home invasion. So I think that that might be the hill they're willing to die on. You would hope. I don't know. What do you
Yeah.
think? I think a gun owner owns a gun for a reason, and they're not going to let somebody take it away because they bought it out
Yep.
of fear, and the fear of not having that weapon. Um, because of the Black Lives Matter riots and Antifa terrorism and all the things that have happened, I think I would like to think, hope, and pray that they wouldn't. I know my family wouldn't. I know I wouldn't.
Yeah. I know for a fact I wouldn't, from my
Yeah,
dead cold hands. Period.
literally. And I also would take a bullet to my head
Yep.
before I would let someone inject my body with something against my will.
Yeah.
And that
Exactly.
sounds
I
pretty
will
crazy, but I would.
I will live on my feet as a free man before, or I will die on my feet a free man before I live on my knees as a slave. It's just not going to
Yeah,
happen.
I
Um,
know.
and that's just how it is for me. Um, I just want, to be left alone.
I
That's
know,
my
me
thing.
too. I just
Just
wanna
leave me
wear my
alone.
wig. Don't you wish we could just go back to when life was simple and we didn't have to think about this stuff 24/7?
Yeah.
It like
Yeah. I
2019
really do.
seems like a utopian dream from the past. I'm not even joking. 2019.
Yeah.
But the bright side in all of this, and because I was with my sister, she goes to the Mormon church. She's from Las Vegas. She's the only one in her ward not wearing a mask. The only one. And her bishop just
Wow.
forced her. She was Relief Society president, and the bishop just forced her to go to another ward. So she's dying on the inside, and she got the vaccine to stay at her job. And she said, I don't know, when is the hill to die on? And she said, Ryan, is this mask thing at church the hill to die on? I said, yes, it is. It absolutely is. And so
Oh yeah.
so she's realizing that at this point, um, you have to take a stand because if you don't, we're going to lose our freedoms. But things were so dire. I was like, okay, let's turn this around. What is the silver lining? What is the bright side? And I believe I don't like fake positive thoughts. I don't like, being sunshiny. But I think this is a legitimately positive silver lining. When the USSR happened, West Germany, Cuba, Australia, and of course Nazi Germany. We we've never had such a large population of people who lived under such immaculate prosperity and freedom for so long. The next generation is a different story, but right now there will be more resistance to this than there ever was in Russia, than there ever was in Germany. We are a massive country, and there are still millions and millions of people alive right now, and who will still be alive until the day we die, who will rise up and who will resist it. So that is, to me, that is a silver lining, because every time this has happened in history, there had never been a 200+ year experiment of an ideal country like the United States. So that gives me a lot of hope. There was no concrete proof of how good life could be when that happened. People lived in squalor in Germany before World War II. They didn't have freedom and big houses and yards and prosperity and iPhones and grocery stores. So I'm hoping that the fact that the experiment has already been successful will show that it could happen again. And
Yeah.
it'll be like, what's the movie with Natalie Portman, the Mask? V for
V for
Vendetta.
Vendetta.
Remember how they like look to the past and the guy's like, look, people had religious freedom, people lived, and that's kind of what started a new revolution. So we
Yeah.
are the revolutionaries, my brother. I don't want to be. I would love to just I love to quit politics and just go back to being a drag queen and
Oh
dress up as.
God, I'm so sick of talking politics.
I know, it kills you. What are some of the ways that you decompress? Because I'm not going to lie, I don't. This consumes me
Yeah.
all day, every day, whether it's posting
Oh,
on social
I
media.
hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really rough. I mean, especially running a podcast like this and stuff, and I'm sure you can empathize with that. Like it's just constant, and this day and age, you've got to be constantly vigilant, being able to fight back against these people and like trying to argue these people who are arguing nonsense. And you have to have all these facts and statistics and dates and everything memorized. And granted, I love history and everything, but damn,
Oh,
give me a
it's
break. I'm
I
not an
know.
encyclopedia.
I get caught up in
Um,
these arguments, and it's like, oh, I don't have the exact statistics to defend the
yeah,
fundamental truth behind this principle. But a lot of times you don't have to have that. You could throw in something like, teach a man, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish,
yep,
feed him for a lifetime. The fundamental principles of truth are there, even if you don't have
oh
the
yeah,
exact statistics. But
yeah. And sometimes you just have to walk away. It's
yeah,
just like a lot of these super militant, crazy people. Like there's no talking to them.
there's
Like
no talking to
you
him.
say what you got to say and then you just end it and walk away because you just can't. And so to answer your question, what do I do to like decompress? I spend a lot of time with family and friends. um, and after high school, don't really have a whole lot of friends. Now I make friends like this doing interviews with people. So
Yeah.
you are now my new friend.
Well,
And
thank you. Yeah, I don't do that, and that's one of my primary problems, losing my job in the airline industry. That
yeah,
was my social outlet because every single trip was a new crew, going to a new
yeah,
city, chit-chatting in the employee area, chit-chatting in the back of the airplane, chit-chatting when you get on a layover. So that was my social outlet, and that's one of the reasons I've sort of become fairly self-destructive because I don't get out and do anything with people. I
yeah,
don't have the motivation. But I'm gonna remember you saying that. I think that is critical because you just started getting your own brain, and someone like me who's entrenched in politics all day yesterday, today, and tomorrow, it starts to do it. So I think I'm just gonna look up some old friends, maybe even some leftist friends, and be like, hey, do you want to go on a hike or get some pizza?
yeah. I mean, I do have some more left-leaning friends. Not so much, but I do always extend my hand, because I'm willing to put stuff aside. Although there is a limit to that. Anybody who's willing to put me in a gulag, I'm not willing to be friends with.
Right, exactly.
So,
And at this point, the the militant left, I am not exaggerating. If if the pro mandate, pro people, anti medical freedom people were able to vote to have us put in camps and or killed, they would. They
oh
would.
yeah, yeah,
We've seen
yeah.
their
I've seen it.
savage nature come out, wishing us death. Someone just messaged me, sent me an email. It said, "Be on my podcast," and then in the email it said, "You, I hope you die. You CUNT," and it's like that's where
Wow.
we're at. That is their spirit. Hey, I want to give you a website, and I'd love for your listeners to visit it as well. It's called vigilantcitizen.com. Vigilantcitizen.com. I go to it regularly. I've followed it since 2009. They have the most compelling, incredible articles about the cultural uh, symbolism that is being used to push certain ideologies, to push Marxism, to push the New World Order in pop culture, and things like certain buildings and events and ceremonies. I think it's a rabbit hole, but it's a rabbit hole that is completely backed with uh, proper research and comparison. So I would just recommend people go to vigilantcitizen.com. I'd recommend you go there. It'll give you a lot of insight when you talk about the encroaching communist takeover, which hopefully won't happen
Perfect.
because we're going to fight. But the problem is,
Yeah,
once freedoms are taken away, they don't get given back without bloodshed.
exactly.
So pretty
Vigilant
scary.
citizen. I will definitely make sure and put that in my Telegram and pin that.
Yeah,
Um,
and go
the
there
what?
yourself. I mean, it's not exactly an uplifting, happy, fun ride, but it's so empowering to realize, yes, yes, that's what Britney Spears' video actually meant. All the weird
Yeah.
psychotic things, this symbol on the eye, and this
Yeah.
symbol, and this symbol, and monarch butterflies, and pyramids, and all the stuff that's out there. It truly is. It's
Well, it's
mind-boggling
what's
how
really
much we're
weird.
brainwashed.
What's really weird about these people is because I mean the occult and things like that. Like I don't believe in them on the surface, but what scares me about it is because the people who do believe in it and put the power into it, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They are manifesting what it means to them through these symbols and everything, and that's what freaks me out about them.
Yep.
By themselves, they're just symbols, but it's the energy that they put behind all of this,
Oh, and
and
it's there. The Church of Satan
everywhere.
was at the last LGBTQIA Pride event in Utah, and my friend was at the Capitol, and the Church of Satan was there. I don't know if it was, oh, I think it was pro-life, something like that. And the literal Church of Satan was there. Do I believe that they have access to the devil and his actual powers? Not necessarily, but every movie you watch on Netflix, all these shows are about cannibalism, witchcraft, torture, murder, and it's not a coincidence. So if you go to that website, you'll love it. I am cleaning houses to make ends meet right now, and I actually have to go because I have to be to my friend's house to clean up, right, like in a short time. So I actually have to head out.
No worries. Well, it was honestly a great pleasure to get you on, and I would love to be able to get you on again. So,
You bet.
go ahead and plug whatever you got
Oh,
going
okay.
on.
All right.
So,
Well, if you just go to ladymagausa.com, that's LADYMAGAUSA.com. From there, you can find my social media. I'm on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. And you can also listen to my podcast on there. Just click podcast on the drop down menu. I'm on episode 51, and I've covered so many different topics and interviewed so many different people. So I hope you'll listen to that podcast. And of course, most importantly, right now, I am not in a place of financial stability. I'm trying to get my life back on track after losing my career of 8 years. So people could donate through my website. There's a PayPal link, and they can sign up for $1 or $5 or $100 a month, whatever they're comfortable contributing to me. And I think my track record proves that that's a good investment in a political activist who really puts my money where my mouth is, and I do work very hard at this. So if they could do that, that'd be awesome. And please share this podcast as well. For anybody listening right now, I'm sure there's a little three dots somewhere wherever you're listening, and you can click that copy link and paste it onto your social media. And for those of you libertarians out there listening, Lady MAGA loves you. I align with the Republicans very hesitantly, but I'm excited. It's the Mises Caucus, Mrs. What's it?
Mises.
Mises, Misus,
Mises.
Mises, Mises. I'm gonna look it up.
Yep.
All right.
Well,
Thank you,
perfect.
Jacob.
I will of course, I will link to all of your socials and everything in the episode description.
I
And you
appreciate
can
that.
find me at Rise to Liberty podcast pretty much everywhere. You can listen everywhere podcasts are found, including YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble. So until next time, stay free, my friends. Thanks again, Ryan.
Of course. God bless y'all.